Hi, my name is Mike Levier, Principal Customer Success Specialist here at BMC. In today's video, we're going to show you how to monitor your Remedyforce license subscription count, Lightning version. All right, so before we start, I just wanted to mention this version is the Lightning version of doing these steps. There is another version that was put together a few years ago that's done in the classic mode. So if you're more comfortable doing it in classic, please look at that video. For those who are now starting to use Lightning and want to see this video done in Lightning, here's how you do it. So first we'll log into Remedyforce and we'll go ahead and click on the Reports tab. Now, as you know, or you may know, our product does come with some out-of-the-box reports that we provide our customers. There's one out-of-the-box report called License Metric Report. And on my screen here, you'll notice that it's there at the very top, but by default, you're looking at recent reports. So if you've never run the report, you won't see it on the screen. You'll have to actually look for it. You'll click on All Reports, and from there, you can type the License Metric Reports. I'll just type the word metric, and it'll show up here. So just so happens I have two versions of it. One is in my private folder, which is probably one that I did, and I saved it in my private folder, in my personal folder. But the one that we're interested in is the one in the Remedyforce Reports folder, and it's called License Metric Report. So at this point, you can go ahead and click the name here, and that'll actually run the report from here and give you the results. But we're going to need, and we're going to want to modify the report a little bit. So there's another option. You can kind of go to the drop down on the far right, and you'll have an option to edit right from here. So when you click on edit, it'll load up the edit screen where you can start editing your report. So for this video, I'm going to go ahead and click on the report just to show you what it looks like when you run it. Now in your environment, you may have hundreds or even thousands of users, so this list may be really long for you. This environment, I only have about 10 or 15 individuals, so it'll be a little easier to follow. So what you're going to want to do is we're going to want to edit this to just look at the staff. We don't want to see all the clients. We don't want to see everybody else. We just want to see the staff users. So we're going to go ahead and click on the Edit button. Now this will bring us to the edit screen in Lightning for reports. First thing I want you to notice is, let's see the column headers. So we have the first name, last name, the profile, the user license, and if they're active or not, and then the service desk staff. You may have a few more columns in your environment. Those are not needed, and we'll go ahead and remove those. Just like I'll go ahead and remove the active column, only because this report already looks at active users. It doesn't look at inactive users because those inactive users are not consuming a license. So by default, it's looking at all the active users, so we don't necessarily need this column here. So on the left, you'll see the column header, and these are all the columns I just went through. So here's active. I'm going to go ahead and click the X to remove it. And you'll notice because I have my update preview automatically, it refreshed the screen and shows me that the active column is gone. What we're going to want to do, though, we're going to want to add most likely the role column, only because a lot of customers nowadays are using roles as opposed to profiles. Well, they're using both, but they're leveraging the roles a lot more to determine what role they're in at the company level. So you might want to add the role column to help you determine, based on their role, if they should be a staff user or not. So we'll go ahead and go back to columns, and we're going to type here role, and we'll just click on it, and that'll add it to the bottom of the list. And meanwhile, it's refreshing and adding the role column to the far right. So these are basically the columns you're going to want in your report. Now again, if we run this, we're going to get a long list of users. What we want to do is modify this to just show us the staff, the service desk staff users. So this is the column here we really care about. We care about the ones that have a checkbox. So there's a couple ways to do this. You can actually go to the far left, search for service desk staff, and then add it as a group, or just click the little drop down and then select group row by this field. By clicking that, it actually groups it. You'll notice now the service desk staff column is in this group area, and you'll see two sections. The top section here is the ones that are unchecked, and the bottom sections are the ones that are checked. So again, we can go ahead and save this and run it, but the top part, we may have a lot of individuals, thousands of users, and we got to scroll right to the bottom to find the ones that that have the checkbox. So there's another way to remove this whole upper section, and that's by adding a filter. So we're going to go ahead and click on filters. And the filter that we're going to add is the service desk staff equals true, meaning we just want the ones with the checkbox. So we're going to click on the search box here. I'm going to look for the word staff, select service desk staff, and a pop-up shows up. And by default, it shows true, which is what we want. So we'll go ahead and apply it. So now, because the preview is automatically on, this preview is showing me that I have 7 with the checkbox check. So this is actually the report that what we want to keep going forward in order to do the next 2 steps, which is to add it to a chart and also to subscribe to the report and get an email if ever we go over that magic count. So we're going to go ahead and save this. Now, I really highly recommend that you don't just click on save, because by saving it this way, you're actually going to overwrite the default report that we provided you. So you're going to want to click the little drop down and select Save As. Now you can leave it like this, a copy of, or you can give it any other name you want. I'm going to go ahead and call it license monitoring. And because I have a couple of those, I'm going to put a 3 here. And then click away, and that'll actually automatically fill in your report unique name. You can add a description if you want, but in this video, I'll leave it like that. And then the folder, there's a couple of options here. You can leave it in the default folder, which is public for anyone else to use, or you can go ahead and select another folder. Maybe you want to put it in a private folder. It's your choice. But for this video, I will leave it in the default reports folder. That's it. I'll hit save. So now the report is built, and going forward, you can go ahead and run this report at any given time to see how many individuals you have with the service as staff checked. Now, before we move on to adding this to a chart, I want to bring your attention to the very bottom of the screen. You'll notice there's a few blue check boxes. In this report, you see all of the detail, all the individuals. And again, you may have hundreds of individuals, and you don't necessarily want to scroll to the very bottom to get the results, or you may not want to have all those details. You may just want to have the number. How many staff users do I have? I just want to see the number. So you could actually check or uncheck this detail rows, and you'll see all you have is a number. At that point, when you run the report, you'll just get your number. And if you do want to see the individuals, you'll have access to these 4 buttons on the other screen. You can just turn it back on, and then you'll see all the individuals. All right, so now we'll move on to adding this to a chart. So there are a few ways to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it in the easy way, the same way that we do it in the classic mode. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Dashboard. So the fact that I clicked on the dashboard tab, it loaded my recently viewed dashboards. So I already have one called Remedyforce Admin, which is the one that we're going to want to use today. But in your case, you may not have one. This is a custom dashboard. So you can go ahead and click on New Dashboard to create a new dashboard. You're going to give it a name and then start building it, which will be the same thing once I click on Remedyforce Admin Dashboard and we're going to edit. It'll bring you to the same screen. Or you may have other dashboards that's in your environment. You can actually click on all dashboards and then do a search for a specific dashboard you want to add this chart to. Okay, so for today, we're going to click on the Remedyforce Admin dashboard, and you'll notice that it already has the chart that we're going to build today. So we're going to build a second one right next to it that'll mimic this one here, just to show you how to do it. So we're going to go ahead and click on Edit. So just like you do in classic mode, you basically want to add your report and the type of chart that you want. So we're going to click on Add Component, and it's asking you to select your report, and we just saved it in our recently license monitoring 3. So we're going to select that. And now it's giving you options to select the type of dashboard you want. So we want the gauge, and that would be found right here. And it's giving you a sample of what it's going to look like. So that's what we want. So we're going to click on Add. And it looks like it added it at the very bottom. We could move this over to the very top. All right, so now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add these breaking points that we have here like on the first chart. Now you'll probably notice this says 5 and this says 7. That's because this dashboard hasn't been refreshed in probably quite some time. And we know that the number we have today is 7. This is a new number. So once I refresh the dashboard, this will probably change to a 7. But what I want to do is I want to put these breaking points to kind of balance this off a bit. In my environment here, I should have more than 5 licenses being used. Anything more than 5, I want it to send me an alert. So that'll be the breaking point here, 5. And I added a 7 here to kind of end off the gauge. So we'll do the same thing on the other chart. So we'll go ahead and click the pencil. So now if you scroll down, we could have did this earlier on the other screen, but I wanted to show you what it looks like. First thing we're going to do is flip the colors. So we'll make this one green. Okay, that looks good. And then we'll make this one red. Oh, pinkish red, that works too. And then for the breaking points, the first point, we know this will be a 5, so this can probably be a 3 or whatnot. So we'll make this a 3. The next one will be a 5. And the last one will give it let's say a 9, just to make it a little different. I'm going to just go ahead and update this for now. Now, if you look at both graphs, you'll notice something a little strange is the actual breaking points don't necessarily line up with the numbers themselves. So if you look at this graph here, for an example, here's a 2, 3 is right in the center, which that kind of makes sense. But then between 4 and 5, why is this not lined up with the 5? And the same goes for on this side. You'll notice a few other things. The 3 is not necessarily lined up. And that's all to do with the amount of breaks you have along with your total number. So for an example, if I change that 9 to a 10, you see how it shifted a lot of the breaks over, which is fine. That kind of works good for me. I can see it's between 6 and 8. Seven's about there, and 5 is somewhere in the middle here, and the 3 is somewhere in the middle. So this is probably a better balance based on the breaks and the actual colors. So if I want now, I can make this a little better and move this over to a 6. So if I click on this, oops, update, click on the number, it changes to a 6. You see how it moved over? It kind of lines it up better. Then I can move this one here to a 4 if I want, or to a 2. If I move this down to a 2, there. That's a pretty good balance if you want. So you can play around with these numbers to make it look a little nicer. Okay, so we'll update it. So there we have it. Now that you're done, you can go ahead and save it. Now this dashboard just happened to be an existing dashboard, so I can just click on save. But if you've created a brand new dashboard, select the little drop down, go to save as, call it what you would like, and then you'll have access to that dashboard going forward. And just to confirm what I mentioned earlier, you'll notice here the last refresh was 1400 days ago. So I'm going to go ahead and click on refresh, and then they should all be at 7. So there we go. This has a max of 10, so you can see the 7 count, and this one here goes to 7. That was the max. So either way, the number is what we're looking at. We have 7 licenses. Now let's move to the third area, how to subscribe to a report and get notified through an email should you ever exceed your license count. Now in Salesforce Lightning, they've added the subscription. They kind of changed a little bit of how the subscription works. So there's one on these dashboards. If I click the subscribe button, there is a subscription window here that comes up and kind of gives you, the frequency and what day of the week and what time, but only when the results receive new results by mail when the dashboard is refreshed. So when someone refreshes it, and then you'll get an email. That's not necessarily what we're looking for. So we're going to click on cancel. We're actually going to go to the report itself. And we're going to select the license monitoring report. So now at this point, we can subscribe to the report. And what we care for is anything over a certain number, send me an email. Now in this environment, we see 7. We have 7 staff users. I know that I'm over by 2. It should be 5. Okay, so next to the edit button, you'll see a little drop down. From here, you can go to subscribe. This will give you more options than what you saw earlier on the other screen. But what you have here is just a little different layout. You have the frequency of the report, that you want to get, and what day of the week, and the time of the report. Attach a file. You have the recipients, and how do you want to run this report, as me or from another person, and then the conditions. What's really important here is the last option, the conditions. We want to add a condition that says, if ever my license count is over 5, send me an email. Now, to keep in mind, it'll send you one email. But if you miss that email and it only sends you one, you're never going to know. So when it comes to the frequency of these emails, you're going to want to select specific options. So we'll go through that from the very beginning. But let's start with the condition. So we're going to add a condition here. You'll get notified when all of the conditions are met. So the record count is, larger than, in my example, I'm going to say 5. So whenever the record count, that's the total count, that number we saw, that 7, is greater than 5, send me an email. We don't have to put anything more than that. What kind of email do I want? Do I want the summary and the report, or just a summary? Here, why not give me both? That way I can confirm that the numbers are right. Now, at the very top, we look at the frequency. So if you're an administrator or a manager, how often you want to get these emails. So keep in mind, if you miss that email, you want to continue getting it to remind you on a daily basis, possibly a weekly basis, until something is done. Maybe somebody does a cleanup to bring that count back below where you're supposed to be, or you reach out to BMC account manager to send you a quote for additional licenses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on daily because I'm going to want a daily reminder. And what time of day? Well, you're probably going to want to select sometime early in the morning. So it really stands out when you first log in the morning, it's going to be there. So maybe an hour before you start work, let's say 7 o'clock, the email will come to you at 7 a.m. So when you log in first thing in the morning, it'll be one of the first emails you get on that day. That way you can address it soon. And the recipients, to yourself, if you're the individual doing this and who will get notified, great. If not, you go ahead and add a recipient or recipients. And you're running the report as me, which is the administrator, the individual who created the report, because you have access to all the users. So the number you're going to get is an actual realistic number. And the condition we already took care of. Record count is greater than 5. So I'm going to go ahead and click on save. And now you started your subscription. Now, from here, you can actually go back to the reports tab, and you can see that the license monitoring report, this one here, is being subscribed. Okay, so then if somebody comes along and removes it, and you're wondering why you're not getting those emails anymore, just verify on the screen that it's still being subscribed, and you can go ahead and verify it. You can go back to subscribe, and you'll see the actual subscription itself. Okay, at that point, if you say, no, I want to modify this, you can go ahead and modify it, or you can go ahead and unsubscribe if you want. All right, so now you're all set. So what's going to happen is tomorrow morning, I should receive an email from Salesforce with the report, and let me show you what one of these emails look like. So here's a sample email. This is the one for Staff Monitoring 2, a previous version that I did. The email will come in. It'll give you the information here. Record count is 7 and is greater than 5. And if I scroll down, you'll see a copy of the report. So those are the 3 methods that you can put together in your environment in order to monitor your Remedyforce licenses. Thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your partner or your BMC product account manager.